All right, we're going to do Microsoft Simnet Excel 2019 Independent Project 2.5. This one, I've got the start file open in my instructions. We're going to be looking at the San Diego Sailing Club. It says they keep data about its fleet of rental and charter boats. One of the sheets is missing a piece of data, and another sheet has a circular reference error. We're going to complete work on these sheets, calculate projected rates for each boat, and build basic statistics about past rentals. So it tells us, again, this is formula heavy here in Chapter 2. So we're going to create and copy formulas, use formula auditing tools, set mathematical order of operations, that's the parentheses like we did last time, use relative, mixed, and 3D cell references. We're going to use count if and sum if functions. We're going to build an if formula, and we're going to insert the today function. Now we've got it open. We've clicked enable editing. We don't need to rename it. We're going to start right here. So it wants me to click the new prices. Oh, we've got three sheets here. We've got a fleet tab, a new prices tab, and a bookings tab. So the fleet tab just tells us information about our fleet. We want to go over to the new prices tab, and we want to review the formula bar. It says click on cell D5. So we're going to go over to D down to 5. And it says the formula begins with 1 plus D4. Okay. So, whoop, it wants us to edit and copy the formula. It says edit in the formula. So I'm going to click here and go up into my formula bar so that it shows $4 instead of D. So what this is, D4, with these are have a dollar sign before each of these. That's an absolute reference with both regard to this column and the row. Whichever one the dollar sign is before is an absolute reference. No dollar sign, relative reference. So we want it to say $4. This means as I move this, the column will change, but the row will not. So we're going to copy this formula over and down, and what it's going to do is when I copy it over, the column's going to change to E, but as I copy it down, I still want it to point to this 5%, 10%. So as I copy it down, it's always going to point to row 4 here. Okay, clear as mud? So it says this formula should multiply 1 plus the percentage value in cell D4 by the current rate on the fleet sheet H5. And this is absolute reference to row 4 and column H on the fleet sheet. So this says go over to the fleet sheet H5. I go over to the fleet sheet. I look at H5. That's their value. But it had reference to the column, not the row. It's backwards. So this way, if I copy it over, it's going to stay in column H, but we do want it to go down. So we've got that correct. Then we want to copy this down without formatting to preserve the border down to cell D6 through D19. So we're going to drag the fill handle down, click the autofill options and choose fill without formatting. Then it wants me to select D5 through D19. I've got them selected, point to the fill handle, and drag them over to E5 through E19. Let go. Then it wants me to click on cell E6. And what it wants me to notice in cell E6, remember we started with D4 and H5, is that because this was a relative value, it's changed from D to E, but it stayed at 4. Even though we went over and down, it only changed 1. And the opposite happened on the fleet sheet. It stayed in column H, but it went down to row 6 as we went down. It's what they call a mixed reference. So now we're going to build a formula with mixed references. We want to go over to cell F5. We want to hit equals to begin our formula, open parentheses, then type 1 plus, and then we want to click on cell F4 above it. And it says it wants it to be an absolute reference to the row, but not the column. So we want to say $4. So a trick for this, if you press the function 4 key, the F4 key on your keyboard the first time, if you look up here, it adds dollar signs to both the column and the row. If I press it again, it does just the row. Press it a third time, it does just the column. And I press it a fourth time, and it goes back to both column and row being relative. So I would press it twice. So I get to $4. Then I want to close my parentheses. I want to do multiplication with the asterisk. And then it wants me to go to cell I5 on the fleet sheet. I'm going to go to the fleet sheet, cell I5. I'm still in my formula bar. So I'm going to click on I5. And then wants this to be an absolute reference to the column, but not the row. So I'm going to press function 4 3 times this time. The first time it adds it to I5. Look up here to both the column and the row. Then just the row. Then just the column. So my formula should say equals open parentheses 1 plus $4 close parentheses times fleet exclamation point $I5. Hit enter. Takes me back and puts my formula in. It wants me to fill it down to the bottom of column F without formatting. So I'm going to click it down, choose fill without formatting. Then it wants me to format it as currency. Second. So on my home tab, I'm going to click the drop down here and choose currency. Still with those cells selected. And then it wants me to copy it over to column G, G5 through G19. Over. I'm going to again click on this one to test it, and we can see again that we start with F4. It's gone to G4. We start with I6. So we can see the same thing. The row has changed here, or I'm sorry, the row has remained constant here, and the column has remained constant here. All right. That's it for mixed references. So we're going to go to the Fleet Sheet tab, and it's going to show us how to work a if statement. An if statement checks for a value. And so it wants us to go to cell G5. They want to know if this boat has a galley with a stove in it. And it tells us rental boats with a stove must seat at least 8 or more people. So we're going to build this formula. So it wants us to create an if function with a logical test argument determines if there are 8 or more seats. We're going to click in here. We're doing a formula, so we're going to go to the Formulas tab. We want to go to logical because we're giving it a logical test. And we want to choose if. Well, what are we checking? We want to see if it has 8 seats, right? Seats 8 or more. So we're going to go over to seats. We want to click on it. Then we want to type in greater than equal to 8. And it tells us immediately that is a true statement. This is 8, which is greater than or equal to 8. So we're good. For the value if true, it wants us to type in yes with a capital Y. Value for no, no with a capital N. Say OK. So now it says yes. It wants me to copy the formula down without formatting and then center it. So I can just look over here at my seats. And the only ones I see are these 3 here that have fewer. So I know it should say yes all the way down except for these 3 exceptions. So let's see how we did. Copy it down. Fill without formatting. I've got my 3 no's there and I'm good. And then it wants me to center the data. So I'm going to go to cell G5, put my cursor in the middle so I have the big plus. Select that data, go back to the Home tab, and choose Center Align. All right, step 8, just like we did before, wants us to go to cell B21 and put in the today function. So I'm going to hit equals, start typing TO for today, and then I can either press tab on my keyboard or I can click on it and hit enter. Another way to put that function in, it is just a function. Going to go here, going to go to the Formulas tab, date and time, today. No arguments, okay, same thing. Just a different way to get there. But it wants it formatted differently. It wants the month spelled out, the date, and the 4 digits for the year, such as January 1st, 2020 here. Whoops. So we're going to click here. We're going to go back to our Home tab. We see it's formatted as a date, but we want to click the launcher. So we've got date selected over here, but then we have all the different date formats. And so it says it wants the month spelled out, the date, and the 4-digit year. And it gives me this example of March 14th, 2012. Click OK, and it populates with February 11th, 2021. All right. Step 9, we're going to do a division formula. So it wants us to go over to the booking sheet, and it wants us to select cell F5, the passenger per revenue. Well, this is easy. We've got the total fees. We got the number of passengers. So this is just a real simple. It just says build a division formula. So we hit equal to start our formula. We want the total fees, / for division, number of passengers, bada boom, bada bing. And then it wants us to copy that down from F6, whoops, point to the fill handle, drag it down to F19. We're going to format this later, so don't worry about it. Okay, step 10 wants us to create a count if function to count bookings by boat manufacturer. So it wants me to select cell D27 down here. Then it wants me to start the count if function. So we're going to go to formulas, and it's in the statistical group. So we're going to look over here, math and trig, more functions, statistical, count if. Not count if's the plural, but count if. But it says it counts the number of cells within a range that meet a given criteria. So we've got Beneteaus, Capris, Catalinas, and Hunters. We want to know how many boats of each do we have in our fleet, or in our bookings, I should say. So for the range, it tells me to select cells C5 through C19 as absolute. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to choose C5 through C19. Press F4 on my keyboard so I get those $ signs all around it. Then for the criteria, for the first thing, it wants me to type in BEN asterisk. That asterisk is a wild card. So I got Beneteau over here. I just want to type in BEN asterisk. And that's going to look over here, and anything that starts with BEN, it's not case sensitive, is what it's going to return. So I click OK. It returns 5. I can go through here and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's working properly. So then it wants me to copy that formula down from D28 down to D30. But then I've got to edit it for each criteria. So I'm going to click in cell D28, and I can either edit it right up here in my formula bar, and I want to change BEN to CAP star. So it gets all the capris. And the reason they do this is there's different types, like these Catalinas. There's a Catalina wave and a Catalina sky. So you just care if it starts with CAT. So another way, we can either change it right up here, or we can click insert function. And this also shows us the criteria. And we can just replace that with CAT star. It'll replace the quotation marks automatically for us. Oh, I'm sorry, this is CAP, as in Paul star for Capri. Say OK. It tells me I've got 3 capris. I see them right here. Gives me a warning message knowing it's inconsistent. We don't care about it. Then we want to go to Catalina's. Insert function. We want to change that from BEN star to CAT star. Gives me 3. 1, 2, 3. And finally, we want to change the hunter. I'm going to do this one in the formula bar from BEN star to HUN star. And it shows me my 1, 2, 3, 4 hunters in my fleet. Okay, just going through and counting based on the criteria. So Sumif is very, very similar, except it adds. So once let's go to E27, we want to see how much money are these guys making us. So we're going to start the Sumif function. This is under mathematics and trigonometry. We scroll down to Sumif. And then again, we did this one before. For the range, we want the same range as before, C5 through C19. Press F4 to make it an absolute reference. The criteria for the first one were on the Beneteaus. We want it again to be BEN star. And then the sum range, we want it to be the total fees, column E, E5 through E19. So we drag there. We hit F4 on this again to make that a reference, because we always want it to look in this place even as we copy the formula down. And we say OK. Tells us we have $2,400 for the Beneteaus. Copy it down. And then it wants us to edit the criteria for each of these guys. So we're going to do just like we did before. Copy it down. I'm going to go to the one next to Capri. Again, it's got the criteria range, the criteria in the sum range. I can either click insert function and change the criteria here, or I could change it up in the address bar up here. So I want to change this one to CAP star. Okay. Next one, I want to change it to CAT star. And the third one, I want to change it to HUN star. Okay, step 12 just has us complete some formatting and we will be done. So it says apply the currency format to all values that represent money. So my total fees and my revenue per passenger, those are both currency. So I'm going to go back to the home tab, make them currency, not accounting, currency. And then my total revenue is also currency. So I'm going to do the same thing, make that currency. Then it wants me to format the labels in cells A1 and A2. So I'm going to select A1 and A2. It wants me to make them 18 point. So I'm going to hit my drop down, choose 18 point. Then it wants me to select A1 through F2. It wants me to click the alignment launcher, the little button in the lower right corner of the alignment group. And it wants me to center the labels across the selection. So under my horizontal alignment, I hit my drop down, choose center across selection, say OK. Then it wants me to merge and center the label in cell C25 over cells C25 through E25. So I'm going to click this, go up in my alignment button. There's my merge and center button. Click on that. Then it wants me to bold and center the labels in rows 4 and 26. So I'm going to select A4 through F4, bold, center. And the same for C5 and C5. Sorry, just row 26. I got to the step ahead of me. Same deal, bold and center. Then Wants me to select cells A4 through F19, our whole chart up here, and apply all borders. So my font group, click the drop down next to borders and choose all borders. And then do the same thing for C25 through E30, all borders. And then the last thing is center the page horizontally. Again, I always hate this. To do this, it's in the margins. So we go over to the page layout tab. We go to margins, custom margins. There we are. We choose center on the page horizontally. Say OK. And again, I give you a quick print preview that would center it on our page horizontally if we were to print it out. And voila. Let's see how we did. Save this guy. What did I get wrong? Cell C25. Oh, I did not see this format at 16 points. So, hey, that's easy to fix. Cell C25 doesn't have a font of 16. It does now. Going to save that. Go over here, hit my back button. Upload my new one. Why not get my easy half a point? And we're in business. Thank you for watching. Reach out with any questions. Have a great day.